All right, there we go. Okay, again, I apologize. I don't really know what's going on here. Don't really have anything extra going on in the background of my computer more than normal, but we are back here. Not sure exactly where we got disconnected. So far in the MLB, we've gone Adley Rutschman over Salvi Perez and Vladdy over Ryan Mountcastle, although I do think that is about 50-50. At second base, you've got Jose Altuve versus Marcus Semien, and that is going to be an interesting race. Both of these guys started off slow. Jose Altuve and the Astros, it's 57-43 right now. And I'm leaning more towards Marcus Semien. Both of them had great seasons, but what Semien's been able to do as like the lone offensive weapon for the Rangers. I know the Rangers are coming off of a World Series win, but Corey Seager has kind of disappeared this season, and he's on the trail back. But being able to power this Rangers team to even mediocrity alone is a feat in itself. So I'm going to give that nod to Marcus Semien over Altuve, although the way the voting ended, it was the other way around, 57-43. At third base, Jose Ramirez, pretty clearly. The other finalist is another Oriole, one of those 6 finalists, Jordan Westburg, who, not to, put down anything that Jordan Westburg has been able to do, because he's been awesome coming up at the same time as all these young guys for the Orioles, and he's been a mainstay in that lineup. His defense has been great. But I'm taking Jose Ramirez. He is an MVP candidate, and that's really what it comes down to. He is an MVP candidate here. And the most interesting race, my favorite race of any of the races actually in the All-Star game, is between Gunnar Henderson and Bobby Witt Jr. Both of them, again, MVP candidates. It looks like it's going to go to Gunnar Henderson, and I understand that. He's got the power numbers. You look at he's on pace for almost a 12 WAR season, which is insane. But let's not put down Bobby Witt. He plays in a smaller market. He is hitting over 300. He's just a couple home runs behind. If you look at the offensive numbers, they're almost equal aside from the slugging of Gunnar Henderson. It is going to go to Gunnar Henderson though, and that is just, again, nothing against Bobby Witt, but that's just how it goes sometimes. Sometimes you get matched up in a tough position. But then we get to the outfielders. Juan Soto, Steven Kwan, Anthony Santander, and Kyle Tucker. So a Yankee, a Guardian, Oriole, and an Astro. You have to pick 3. Aaron Judge already has the nod, so you're picking 2. You can't miss out on Juan Soto. Juan Soto has been the best hitter in baseball, just pure hitting has been the best. And trying to take a little bit of bias out of it, but I love Juan Soto. He's one of my personal favorite players. And then Steven Kwan, he doesn't wow you with those power numbers, but he's hitting near 400. He doesn't miss the ball when he swings, and that is so impressive to me. Along with great defense in the outfield, I think Steven Kwan will get this other nod. And then finally, to fill out the DH spot, Yordan Alvarez versus Ryan O'Hearn, another Astro-Oriole matchup. I'm gonna lean Ryan O'Hearn here. Yordan Alvarez has been better of late, but he isn't the all-star Yordan that we constantly that we think of. Again, he's got more name value than Ryan O'Hearn, but these Orioles are going to sweep the AL All-Star game. Then we're going to move on to the NL. And here, Bryce Harper got that automatic spot. He is hurt, so we're going to pick 3 outfielders instead of just the 2 like we did in the AL. But between catching, we got William Contreras and JT Realmuto. This one pretty obviously is William Contreras. The voting is showing it as well. Contreras has been just the best catcher in the NL by far. At second base, or I guess they gave first base to Bryce Harper. So we'll see if they find a replacement for him. But there's plenty of great options there in the NL. Second base, Ketel Marte or Luis Arias. I'm a lean Ketel Marte. He's been awesome all season offensively. You throw his glove in there as well, and Luis Arias is just great pure hitter. He's going to get his bat to the ball. He's a lot like Stephen Kwan, but Ketel Marte provides a little more of that oomph that we like when we're looking at the All-Star game. Third base, Manny Machado versus Alec Boehm. It's going to go to Alec Boehm. You look at the numbers, 69% of the vote to 31%. He's just, again, the Phillies are going to get a good amount of representation here because they've been the best team there. At shortstop, it's going to go to Trey Turner because Mookie Betts is hurt, although that is a 50-50 vote right now. Mookie Betts probably gets the nod if he's not hurt, but Trey Turner is going to be your shortstop. And in the outfield, we need to pick three. The six finalists are Christian Yelich, Jurickson Profar, Fernando Tatis, Teoscar Hernandez, Brandon Marsh, and Nick Castellanos. Get Nick Castellanos out of there. He's not an all-star. Jurickson Profar is an interesting one. He's just had a huge week and he's having a great season. You can throw him in there along with his teammate, along with Christian Yelich, and we'll give it to his teammate Fernando Tatis as well. Although I do see the argument for Teoscar Hernandez over one of those. The two Phillies there at the bottom, they just had a lot of votes. They're in the finalists, but I think the outfield are going to be Yelich, Profar, and you know what? We're going with Hernandez, with Teoscar Hernandez over Fernando Tatis there. And finally, to finish off the rosters, it's the DH. And this is Shohei. He's going to win the MVP. He clearly is the best player in the NL. He's just that special of a player. So Shohei Ohtani is my DH for the All-Star game. If you think there are any snubs here, or if you disagree, let me know. But we are going to move out of the MLB and into the NFL as Brandon Aiyuk is back in the news again. We'll talk all about what he said about the 49ers and where that puts him in negotiations. So stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we've just finished talking all about the MLB All-Star Game. We've talked about LeBron James in the first segment. I know we got split up, and I don't know why. The live streams are splitting up there again. I apologize, but we also talked about the WNBA and their All-Star games, as well as like I said, the MLB All-Stars. So in this segment, we're going to move out of the world of baseball, move into the world of move into the world of football. Brandon Aiyuk is back in the news. He's been kind of a main character here of the offseason. You know, his contract has lots of ups and downs and twists and turns, and he's back in the news cycle talking about his contract negotiations with the 49ers. So we'll talk all about that and more. But before we get into that, remember that if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message in it. That message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to add, go ahead and throw that in the comments, in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate all of you guys for sticking around, talking some sports with me on this beautiful Wednesday, July 3rd, pre-July 4th. Big day coming up tomorrow. But like I was saying, we are going to talk a little bit about some football. And the big headline here is that he wants to stay in San Fran. The headline came out couple days ago, said Brandon Aiyuk, he wants to stay with the 49ers for sure. That was the title of the headline here. Came out just a few days ago. He for sure wants to stay with the 49ers, and he still wants to get that money. Absolutely. He's a guy that should get paid, but you look at where the 49ers are and where he is on that roster, there's not really a lot of room for them to pay a guy like Brandon Aiyuk. And that's been the big question, the big, back and forth with this whole situation is should they even pay him? Like he's a guy that's worth being paid, but you draft Ricky Pearsall, who's apparently been great, all reports, filling in for that Brandon Aiyuk role. You're already paying Debo. You re-up with Christian McCaffrey. You have to think about soon you're going to have to pay Brock Purdy. And do you want all that money being tied up in a guy like Brandon Aiyuk? You've already paid George Kittle. You've paid a lot of your weapons. Is it time to let him walk? Is he really worth that $20 million that he's probably asking for? And to me, my answer is no. Again, that still hasn't changed. He's a guy that had one great season, 7 touchdowns last year, but he's had a lot of help, and I don't think he deserves to be paid like a number one. I think some team will go pay him, but I think if the 49ers end up doing that, that's going to be a mistake. It's going to be a mistake for them. It's going to be a mistake for their future, because then you're not going to have the money to build around Brock Purdy, because you're going to pay Brock Purdy. You don't have that lucky succession plan like you did when you had that whole thing with Jimmy Garoppolo. He gets hurt, you have Brock Purdy come in, and he starts winning football games. Excuse me. Then you don't have to think about it too much. But you don't have that guy that's going to come in and start winning football games right away outside of Brock Purdy. He's going to demand probably market resetting money, and I think the 49ers will pay it, and I think it's well within their right to do so. I think that's something that's just going to have to happen because quarterback is the big position. You can't just let a guy like Brock Purdy walk when you don't have a succession plan. And maybe they can roll the dice again. Maybe they can say, "Hey, we got this guy, Mr. Irrelevant. We can do whatever. We don't need it." But it is putting them in a tough spot as far as, being a competitive football team, and their window having a quarterback on a rookie contract is where you want to be when you're trying to compete. But it's not the easiest thing to do. They have all the pieces around them, and they've been able to manage this cap really, really well. But they're kind of getting up to the point where they need to win one. They've been there. They've been to the NFC Championship over and over again, and they just haven't been able to get over the hump. And they need to be able to do that if they are going to justify, paying a guy like Brandon Aiyuk. This is going to be a season where Brandon Aiyuk is either going to earn an extra $10 million or lose $5 million based on his play. And I think he's a guy that could play himself to the $30 million range of a team, maybe like the Panthers that love to spend, that need a receiver. There's obviously a spot for him on an NFL roster as a low-end wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2, but as far as getting that money from the 49ers in specific, he has to decide, does he want to be a part of a winner or does he want to get paid? And he's going to have to take a pay cut if he wants to stay with the Niners, and that's just part of it. It sounds like he wants to stay with the Niners at least for this season. And that is fine. That I don't blame him. But if he expects to stay with the 49ers and get that big contract, I feel like he doesn't understand the situation he's in. And maybe I misread it. Maybe the Niners don't think they can be as successful without him. And he was great last season. He really was. But I just don't see a world where he's that important to their success, especially after they draft Ricky Pearsall in the first round, as kind of a, hey, we're getting ready to replace you, or at least get a wide receiver 3. They have the ability to move on from him. He's not like a Debo Samuel, one-of-a-kind kind of talent where you feel like you need to pay him. Even if he isn't Debo Samuel, even if he isn't the greatest wide receiver in the world, what he does with the ball in his hands makes him elite, right? His ability to be that positionless guy, to be physical, run the ball, also be a great wide receiver in his own right. Even if he was just a wide receiver, he'd still be a great wide receiver. But, he's not elite wide receiver on his own, but with everything else he does, he's a guy that you had to keep. Brandon Aiyuk doesn't really bring that to the table. And I think that's what the 49ers are looking at right now. And Brandon Aiyuk is looking to get that elite receiver money. And the 49ers are not going to give it to him. He'll stay in San Francisco for the offseason, for the season, I believe, but then they'll probably part ways in free agency. They won't re-up him unless they can get him for cheap. And there's a real possibility that they can get him for cheap if he really does love playing for San Francisco that much. But as far as this offseason goes, I feel like it's just going to be back and forth. He might request a trade. I doubt it, but this is where I think it's going to stay, and this is where it's going to stand. Brandon Aiyuk is going to play one more season with the 49ers and then walk and get a big bag in free agency. But anyway, we are going to move to close off our show here. In our fifth and final segment, we're going to go over the NHL. There's been a lot that we missed since the Stanley Cup ended just about 2 weeks ago. We had a whole draft. We had multiple days of free agency. We'll go over just a few winners and losers because there's too much to go over in just one segment. So we'll cram it down into winners and losers here in just a second. So stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we've went over a lot so far today. We just finished talking about Brandon Aiyuk and his contract situation with the San Francisco 49ers. He says he for sure wants to stay with the 49ers, although I don't think they are going to re-up him after this season. We talked about LeBron James. He takes a max contract to return to the Lakers after presumably opting out of his player option to take less money. He puts them into the second apron. It's an interesting spot to be if you are LeBron James and the Lakers. It's not a spot that you want to be. It's not good for the future. It really isn't even good for the now. So we'll see if they're able to get that figured out. We talked about 2 All-Star games as well, All-Star rosters, that being the WNBA and the MLB. The MLB rosters will be officially announced in just about an hour, as well as, but the finalists were out there. So we went over some of that. And in this segment, we are going to move into the world of hockey. We're going to talk all about all the craziness that's been going on, trades, drafts, free agency. All of that has been going on in hockey since we last took a peek in when the Florida Panthers won their first ever Stanley Cup. But before we get into winners and losers of that, remember that if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message in it. That message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Go ahead and throw it in the chat. I'll get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate all of you guys for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Wednesday afternoon, despite the technical difficulties. But like I was saying, we are going to move into our 5th and final segment here in the world of hockey, the NHL offseason winners and losers. There's been a lot that we missed around hockey. We missed the draft. We missed the start of free agency. But we're just gonna do some winners, and we'll start off with Why don't we start off with the winners here? That being uh, the Sharks with their first overall draft pick. They got Celebrini for out of Boston College. They also got a great defenseman and Dickinson at number 11 overall. The Sharks are a team that have been awful. Straight up have been awful. They go and they get two really solid players in the draft. A draft that wasn't expected to be the greatest outside of Celebrini. There wasn't anyone that was like, oh, we definitely need this guy. But and we see that with some of the losers there. It's just it's not the greatest spot to be. But I think they killed that draft right there. At the another team that really did great in the draft, the Minnesota Wild. They've been kind of break even. They were able to get a guy who was mocked in the top 5 to go to 12 in a Bium. They just got great value for their picks. They were able to get a second rounder in the 4th as well. And I'm going to butcher this name, Kiev Harju as well. But when we get to free agency here, these players that we know that are coming in, the Capitals, I really like what they did. My Capitals, they grabbed, a new goaltender. They got off of Darcy Kemper in some trades. We talked a little bit about that, I believe. They got some. They're trying to retool around Alex Ovechkin, and I think they did a really good job of that. Not spending too much and not falling too far. They snuck into the playoffs last season, and I think they did a good job at least of treading water, or at least treading water. I think they got better, but I don't think they got worse. A team like New Jersey also upgraded at goalie. That's another team that we talk about, a team that's one piece away in football all the time, quarterback away. The Devils, they were a goaltender away, and I really love getting Markstrom there. There were rumors of him going to New Jersey for about 2 years now at deadlines, but they get him here over the offseason. They're a team that if they can stay healthy, they have lots of great young pieces and now a real goaltender. I think they might be cup contenders. That's a lot. It's really early to say, but if you're looking for a team that can have a big improvement off of last year, I think the Devils are that team. And the final team that I thought had a really good free agency were the Nashville Predators. They were able to. Steven Stamkos was brought in from the Lightning after he left. Shocking, as opposed to get. As a way to get more cap space down there, they parted ways with the captain, and he goes to the Predators. Again, this is a team that was kind of missing some offense, and Stamkos is going to be a huge part of that. They had the great defense already. They got even more defenders in Brady Shea and Ryan McDonough. But, the real wins for them, getting Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault to help deliver a little more offense and get them a little further up in the NHL Cup ladder. As far as losers go for the draft, the Ducks here at number 3 overall. It's not a pick I love. It's again, there wasn't. You're not going to see these draft picks come in right away. It's more like the MLB where they're going to spend a couple years in the minors. But it's a high risk, high reward kind of situation, and the Ducks needed more sure things than anything. As far as free agency goes, Detroit hasn't done anything. They got a lot of cap space, but they haven't done anything, and there's still time for them to do things. But they're in a little bit of a cap. They haven't been able to get anything done. They haven't been good for a while, and you kind of expected them to turn it around when they had Yzerman come in there, but he hasn't been able to do what he did in Tampa with Detroit. And finally, Ottawa. They made some big trades. Chinchurian. They didn't really get much back for him. I do love them getting Linus Ullmark, though. Again, goaltending. If you have that, you'll be good. But as far as making that big jump, I feel like Ullmark is a guy that really could have helped some other teams a lot more. He comes in and helping out Ottawa here is. I don't think it's going to be that kind of move that makes that huge difference in the world, in the NHL. But so much more going on in the NHL. free agency is just getting started. There's a lot going on, so keep an eye out for that. Thank you everybody for sticking with me through this show. We're not going to be live these next 2 days. There will be hour-long shows out as well as segments. We're gonna pre-record that. So keep an eye out for that. Happy July 4th, everybody. I will talk to you on Monday. Have a great weekend. I hope you enjoy the 4th. I hope you have a great time with your families and however you do celebrate. So I'll see you on Monday, same time, same place. Have a good one. Bye-bye.